Welcome to Heal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your social media platforms, including making sure that you guys check us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. You'll find both of those podcasts, as well as some other podcasts that we're trying out, all there on the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Make sure you guys go and check us out there. I think you'll be pleased with the information that we have. Also, our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase in order to help us to stay on the air. So our product of the week is our Purpose Journal, as well as our Purpose Planner, which is both available on Amazon, because I believe that we are to journal to keep track of where we've been and where we are in our life, as well as plan for our future. So you can get your copy of our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner on Amazon. The link will be in the description, as well as some other great information that'll be in the description as well. Make sure you guys go there wherever you're watching this at, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your podcast listening platform. Check out the description. There's a lot of information that I think you guys don't want to miss. Now, that being said, today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. Miss Tess, how you doing?
Listen, I'm so thankful to be here, Ernest. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners. We definitely appreciate it. We're going to jump right into this thing. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, yes, my name is just Tess. That's just TES, and I am a business consultant, author, mental health advocate, and honestly, a person that wants to see people live a fulfilled life. I love how that's a part of your theme. And so I do that by coaching services, speaking, and partnering with leaders and organizations in order to bring that awareness, that formula to success, and not just the typical success that people think, like cars, clothes, and all these accolades, but that internal success. So that's exactly what I do. And I'm excited to be on here. So I'm excited to share my story with your listeners too.
No, man, I'm glad to have you. And I definitely agree with you that internal success, changes everything on the outside, because a lot of times we can get the things on the outside, we can get all the trinkets, we can get all the, dress it up with the clothes and hide it inside the house and, all of that stuff. And you can have all of that stuff and still not be happy, still not be fulfilled. on your inside, with your emotions and with your mental health and all of those things. And so when you get those things on the inside right,
Come on.
even if you don't have all those things on the outside, your joy and your light will still shine, and reflect the happiness that you have on the inside. So I definitely agree 100% with that message. Tess, let's go back. Let's go back into your background and who was the early Tess, right? Who was the early Tess, and what was the situation that you may have encountered that kind of turned you into this person that you are today, that not only was a monumental part of who you are or who you were, but then after being able to work through that, after being able to get on the other side of it, made you say, now I'm going to use my pain and turn it into something else to be a help to other people.
Wow, young Tess. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. I would say let's go back to so my family, shout out to Jamaica. Shout out prayers to Jamaica.
Mhm.
My mother was born here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here in the ATL, and my
Mhm.
father was born in Kingston, Jamaica. So I was had the amazing opportunity to be raised by amazing black woman and then have the culture of the M.A.N, the yacht, the get to talk, you know what I mean? The brown stew chicken, the oh my goodness, the porridge and the beef patties, so many other things, right? So that's the culture that I was raised in. I'm a middle child, so I have two brothers. And so that's sort of kind of the basis of where I was. And at 19 years old, Ernest, everything changed for me. I remember I was going to college here in Atlanta, and it was a Friday. And I got a phone call from my mom telling me to come home as soon as possible. And at the time, I told my friends, listen, I'll be right back. Let me just do this real quick. I'm going to stop home because I was only about 15 minutes away from home. I was like, give me about an hour, y'all. I'll be right back. And when I got home and I saw my mom just shivering and tears flowing down her face and her knees buckling and her palms sweating, I was shocked. I'm like, what's going on? And at that moment, I knew one, I'm not going back to school within 45 minutes. And two, what's going on with my mom? And that's when she told me, Ernest, that listen, your aunt is no longer here because she died by suicide. And like I mentioned, on my dad's side, that was my Jamaican heritage that I grew up with. So growing up, she spoiled me, cooked everything for me, the oatmeal. That's literally what I love to eat in the mornings to this day. That aunt who was the first person I saw who had a PhD, first person I saw who got her own house, first person I saw who got the marriage, got the car, and all these things that I thought success was. And then unfortunately at 19, when that happened, that shifted everything in me. Unfortunately, I went down a road of trouble, a huge road of trouble. But that's honestly where I found Tess. That's where I found who I was. I got myself together after I got into crazy trouble with my best friend. I said, okay, listen, Tess, you mad at the world, but we ain't got to be in trouble now at the same time, right? Like it's like you just angry. You're
Yeah.
just like, forget it all. I don't want to care. I don't care about anything and nobody. Like, and so once I got out of that mindset, thankfully, by just hitting rock bottom, like something about rock bottom make you just look up, like I got to get up out of here. So my up out of here was IT. I joined the IT program here in ATL. Shout out to Europe, Atlanta. I did that program literally for 1 year. Crazy start. I did an internship. Boom. I got hired at a company, worked there for about 12 years. And that was great. I was able to fund myself,
Mhm.
fund my life. But like I mentioned at 19, right? And when I just saw that, okay, success isn't just about money.
Yeah.
Success isn't just about things. I felt like something was missing. And that's when I started my entrepreneurship journey, right? I started trucking, I started real estate. And that's what led me to speaking. Is I was like, okay, that was nice going through that, having money and going through corporate, now going through entrepreneurship, but I need to have something that leads me to purpose. And going through all of those different things led me to where I am today.
Yeah, yeah, that's a journey, and I'm just thinking about, even how we started this conversation because you mentioned about your aunt,
Yeah.
being the one who had the things, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, the education, the all the other stuff, and yet something on the inside still wasn't healed,
Right.
to the point that all of that didn't even matter,
Come on.
you know. So I know you mentioned about kind of going down a road yourself. How impactful, and I know it was impactful, but how, if you can give me a little bit more um, impactful to you directly
Yeah.
was losing your aunt, number one, but then losing her in that way.
Yeah.
And have you yourself experienced, suicidal ideations?
Yeah, so once that happened, honestly, my aunt was somebody who I looked up to. I was on her trajectory. I was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can move out the family house, oh, I'm moving out the family house. She can get a house, I can do that. Once that happened, that shocked me. That sent me into a depression, honestly. I really didn't even recognize myself. I definitely didn't recognize my family. They didn't recognize me. And I know when I started to lose people, shortly after, like I mentioned, I lost. I have two brothers, but unfortunately, I lost one to gun violence. And I can say that grief was a huge trigger. Whenever I experienced loss, my mind would go to a place of like, "What's the point? What's the point of it?" I remember my aunt used to say that sometimes in passing, like, "What's the point?" It was, oh, I got this. She would have different entrepreneurship ventures too, and I just remember she was just sort of kind of hopeless about a lot of different things. And then, so I'll say, like, when I would lose people after her, that would trigger me to start thinking, what's the point? Why should I keep going? Everything's going to end. Or I would just have this negative self-talk. So I had to become aware of that. And honestly, movement has helped me get through those ideations or just that negative self-talk, that that voice that's telling you that you're not good enough, that voice that's telling you that you should end it, that voice that's telling you that you're not worthy to be here. Once I was able to enjoy movement, enjoy yoga, enjoy meditation, I started to meet a new version of myself, because something about grief just puts you in a very, well, I know for me, it puts
Mhm.
me in a very dark place of just feeling like I might as well. What's the,
Yeah.
why should I keep going? So yeah, definitely from that, unfortunately, that had me experience those ideations.
Yeah, and I know from my own experience, grief is one of the things that I do talk about because of my experience with grief, which actually led to my suicidal ideations that I had when I dealt with, being depressed, going through divorce, my whole story, which I've told a lot before, but dealing with everything that I was dealing with at that time, which put me in that space. Grief definitely played a part in that, and I speak openly about it, But I do want to touch on something you just said, which is that movement, but because I think that we lose that in this generation that we are now, and especially going more into AI and this computer age that we're going into, we lose that aspect of being human that
Hmm.
comes with movement. I started hiking last year. I think I
Oh,
got into hiking, and I ran my first 5K this year. I'm actually, at the time of recording this, uh, I think, well, we're recording on the Thursday. This Sunday, I'm running my second 5K. For this year,
oh,
I want to do three a year. So I did. This will be my second one for this year. So next year, I'm gonna try to do another three and probably just stay at that until I, build up a little more uh, in the running. But the reason I bring that up is because, especially with the hiking, when I started hiking, the sense of peace that you get when your body is in movement, because we weren't designed to sit in front of a computer all day and to sit, you know what I mean? Like, we were designed to move. And I think a lot of times we get lost in that, when we get in these different jobs and things, and it's like, like I said, especially with the AI stuff and the computer stuff, it's like you sit in front of a screen. Even, with the podcasting, sometimes you're sitting in front of the camera, all day. It's like, all right, at some point you got to get up and move. You know what I mean? You got to get up and get into some stuff. So I definitely wanted to touch on that. But I wanna go here because we mentioned, we're talking about losing your aunt, and we talked about the grief that you experienced and some of the, things that sent you down this dark path. But then there was a turn, right? There was a turn and a point that turned you around and said, you know what, now I'm going to go differently. Let's talk a little bit about that turning point, and even not just turning yourself, but using the pain and the loss and the grief, that you had, and then turning that into something else, because now you're a speaker, right? And now you talk about some of the same pain points that, you made it through. Now you speak on those same points to help others. So tell us a little bit about that. How was that turning point for you,
Mhm.
and what has been the strength behind now using that to help others?
Yeah, I like to tell people, my friends, I mean, it's your environment. My
Mhm,
environment impacts me just like every other animal on the, like you said, we need
mhm,
to be outside. If you look at every other animal, they're either in
mhm,
packs or they're walking. I just came back from South Africa. We were looking at animals, they're outside, right? And it's their environment. And honestly, my best friend, shout out to my best friend. When we were 19, we were reckless. We were out here spray painting everything. It was drugs, everything all the time. And I was like, oh, this is what we doing, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I remember one day she came home and she had a suit on. She was suiting the boot. I said, where you coming from? She was like, oh yeah, man. I got to clean it up. I'm going to this IT program. I'm doing something better for myself. I was like, whoa, okay. I was ready to just kick it with you today and just get lost and hit the car and just figure out what we're gonna do. But when I saw somebody close to me go through a transformation, that started messing with my mind in the best way possible. That's why I
mhm,
think it's just so important to get away from your circle. I know some people love to be comfortable because it was uncomfortable when I saw my friend, like who I used to be just rolling with, now all of a sudden dressed down, very professional. I was like, hold on. And I didn't want to get left behind personally.
mhm.
So it was like putting myself around more people to expand myself, right? Once I saw her in that light, I started to see myself in a different light. So my environment was literally the turning point of that. And I'll give a shout out to my brother. He is an amazing fitness instructor. He's amazing. He got me into yoga. I remember one time I was like, where you going? He was like, I'm going to yoga. I was like, yoga? I was like, let me take a class. And then now, fast forward, I've been doing yoga for about 7 years now. I remember the first time I did a headstand, I just looked and I saw my yoga teacher doing it. And I said, before I told myself that I couldn't, I told myself that I could. I said, listen, once again, if she can do it, that means you can do it. Test if you're being exposed. So it's almost exposure therapy, is what I would say.
Mhm.
Exposure therapy is what helped me on my transformation of seeing myself in a more fulfilling light, a healing light. And so when I saw her go upside down and do that, I said, I can do it too. So the environment, Ernest, that's something that changed.
Yeah, and that has been such a pivotal point for me. And I always tell people, so my grandmother was the baby of 12 siblings, right?
Wow.
And then she had 10. My
Wow.
mother was one of the 10, and then my mother had 9,
Wow.
right? And so when we talk about family, and that ain't even including my church family, right? But just my family, my blood family, there's a lot of us, right? And when we start talking about cousins and nieces and nephews, like it's a whole gang of us. So I came from a space where family has been, very pivotal in my life. And as I've grown, you kind of move around a little bit. But to me, I've realized how much community has meant to me. And even with us being a part of the Next Level Speakers Academy. That was another community that I joined, and so I have all these different. Even when I mentioned the hiking, I started a hiking group. When I started hiking, there was 7 of us in
Mhm.
this little group, which is my, first. I did my first hike, and it was just the 7 of us went. That group now is have like 130 people in it now.
Come
You know
on.
what I'm saying? And so I found for myself that community has been so important, and especially when we started talking about change, like you said, you had someone in your circle, someone close to you that just did a whole 160, and
Mhm.
it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like somebody's actually doing something different,
Mhm.
and I remember growing up for myself, I've always kind of had my own mind. I always kind of been focused, but I remember when I graduated from high school, and in my circle, it probably like 10 of us, they kind of went like you said, that lifestyle, like, hey, we kicking it, we doing this and that. And that was like their whole thing. And I was like, no, I'm going this way,
Mhm.
because I just had my own mindset. And it probably was maybe like a good 6 or 7 years later, where now I'm at that time married and had my first house, and had the car and the truck and the motorcycle. Like I had all of that stuff, and I'm like, chilling. But it was like they were just now kind of getting to that space, like, oh, let's try to do something different. And I'm like, man, but y'all lost like 5 years to just hanging out. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it takes that one person. And again, sometimes you have to get away from the crowd too, because one of the things that happened in my circle was individually, they didn't start to grow until they stepped away from the pack,
Mhm.
right? So I would, because I just kind of, I was, of course, I'm doing my own thing, but I would keep in contact with everybody, and I noticed that it wasn't until like one at a time they kind of peeled away from the group that they started growing individually to the point that once everybody started kind of growing up, then they came back together and like, oh, now we can kick it as adults now. You know what I'm saying? But it
Yeah.
was that time period that until they had to, number one, change the trajectory of the group as a whole, change the community, change your environment, and sometimes that means getting away from your people, and that could be your family too sometimes, to find that right environment that is going to help you to grow and to become the person that you are meant to be. So yeah, I think that's very definitely very important, to have those examples, whether we become the example,
Yep.
to our circle, or we are influenced by the example of someone else in our circle that helps us to grow and help us to look outside of ourselves or outside of our immediate, family or even state and city. Sometimes like I need to get all the way away. You know what I mean?
But what it makes you think of, that's posted on Instagram. It's like your circle can convince you of two things. It's either they can convince you that you are bigger than you could ever imagine, or it can convince you that you will never be anything and that you will always be the same. So just be aware of what your circle is convincing you.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want to turn a little bit, right? Because one of the things that I know about you now, with our conversation, is that you are an author as well.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that process, because I'm not even going to get into my hardships of writing my book that I've been working on a long time. But how is that process? And tell us a little bit more about the book itself.
Right. So thank you for asking about that. The book is called Success Over Suicide: How to Redefine Success and Transform Your Life. And I wrote that book about 2 years ago now. And that process was intense for me. It was very transformational. It was me being bigger than myself, almost like how you running. Anytime I try to run, or anytime when I do run, or and I do a workout, at the beginning, I'm looking at it like, why did I start this process? Anytime I go on stage, why? I always question myself, right? Once again, that's the beautiful thing about movement, is it makes me aware of the voices, right? And then I get to be like, okay, which voice am I going to allow to be in the driver's seat? And so the voice, when I started to write the book, was like, you're not a writer. I was never a great writer. Like back in high school, whenever it was time to write journal, shout out to your journal too behind you. I'm just like, I used to hate those 5 to 7 minutes at the beginning of class. I'm like, I did not like to write. So now fast forward, I had the opportunity to write a book. I was like, Tess, who are you? What makes you think you can write a book? Remember, you never liked to write. So I had to defeat myself over and over again. And that's even what I talk about with Success Over Suicide. It's not just the physical aspect of suicide, which I do bring awareness to, but it's also the emotional aspect of suicide, and the mental aspect of suicide is what needs to die from us, right? What thoughts do we need to get rid of? What shame do we need to get rid of in order for us to step into a new version of ourselves? And honestly, one of my business coaches he saw it, same thing with it's people just see something more of me. Somebody said, you should write a book. I was like, me? So it's so important to help people, be around more people that see so much more of you. And I stepped into those big shoes, and I wrote straight through it. I maybe took me about maybe 16 weeks. And I remember week after week, I was even looking up J.K. Rowling, how she wrote Harry Potter. She would go into a hotel just to get different scenery. So I was just trying different things, just because sometimes I would be in needing to write and I would not have anything to write. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to write? But I got back into my pain. I had to get to the pain, which is why I called it Success Over Suicide, which is something that happened, a tragedy that happened in my family. And then just talking about the grief. And it was healing for me, honestly. I was going back. I was able to mention my grandmother, rest her soul. I was able to go back into those memories that I felt like I lost people, but it made me realize that they'll always be with me. And anytime I want to
Mhm.
sit with myself and sit with my story and sit with a narrative that's actually going to serve me, I have them in my corner. Even now, when I go outside, I always see cardinals. Every time I go outside, I see a cardinal. I'm like, that's literally every time. And I'm like, whoa. And I know I'm protected. So it just helped me just realize, instead of being ashamed or beating myself up about everything that I've lost and everybody that I lost, it was a transformational process to write that book, Ernest.
Yeah, yeah. And so even with your transformation that happened with you when you were writing it, what is the transformation that you want the reader to get?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, and then I know this even from myself, right? So I mentioned about my book that I'm going to finish at some point. I wrote the first, I think now maybe the first four chapters, and I had set it down and kind of forgot about it. And I went back and I was reading it, just went back and just started reading what I wrote. And I was looking at, just even though it's my words and my story, I'm reading it like, dang, man, this is good. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's a space of healing that we get as the writer to even do the story. But on the other side of it, there's also a viewpoint from the reader's aspect, right? So as you're writing and definitely now as it with it being finished, what do you want the reader to get from it? What transformation do you want the reader to receive once they finish the book?
Great question. I want people to question what success means to them. I know that's what I had to do. I had to also figure out what's my pathway to success, to freedom, to fulfillment. Like you mentioned, your friends. At one point, clearly we thought hanging around each other was success. And that's okay. It's okay. But what happens when you challenge yourself? Right? That's
Mhm.
literally a chapter in my book. You challenge yourself, even if it's through physical movement, writing a book, doing some type of feat. Like that's what's so important, to figure out who you are. I love the saying, who were you before the world told you who you should be? So when I
Mhm.
lost my family members over and over again to different things, mental health concerns, to health issues, diabetes, to suicide. I mean, I was in this, oh, what's the point? I mean, I was angry. I was sort of kind of putting that shield on my head of like just defining myself with all of these situations in a negative way. And this book, my goal was to help people take a step back, to help them look at what they have done to get to where they are now. And now, if they want to be in a different place, figuring out the different tactics and the different tips that I give in the book on how they can redefine success for themselves. I talk about the software of the mind because I did work in IT. So, of course, I had to bring in my IT hat. So I talk about the software, right? Like, what is your software that's running? How many bug scans do you need to do? When's the last time you rebooted? So
Mhm.
I help people realize, like, wait, I gotta pause, right? Like master the pause in order to figure out the next step in life.
I love it. I love it. I want to go here real quickly because when we were talking a little bit before we started recording,
Mhm.
right? And so one of the things that having had my own suicidal ideations, and having going through the experience that you had with your family, I mentioned to you about a conversation that I had with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Um, if anything, having been sort of on the other side of it now, is there any um what's the word I want to say? I want to say advice, but I don't think that's the word that's even strong enough for
Uh,
what I want to bring through. But is there any comfort that you can offer even to the families of the survive, or should I say the family who are the survivors of someone who has taken their own lives
mm,
from suicide? Because again, I didn't get to that point. Thank God that I didn't cross over. But I know that there are so many people, including my friend, who has lost loved ones, and they're still here. So you kind of have that survivor's guilt as being the loved one, the family member, the friend who's still here, and you're struggling with what could I have done better, what could I have done different. Having kind of went through that, experienced it from that point of view. Do you have any tip or advice or anything for any family member that may be dealing with that survivor's remorse, to help comfort them even with the loss that they've suffered?
Wow. I would definitely say it's been a journey for me, dealing with this, losing my aunt to that. And one thing that has helped me is to prioritize my mental health, my well-being. And I love to a disclaimer too. I know people experience, unfortunately, taking their own lives. Some people do need medication. So I think that's a completely different topic. But for the people who are unfortunately dealing with either voices or doubt or shame or feeling like they're not worthy, those are the people I'm talking to, right? Um, those are the people I'm talking to. And I encourage people. One of my coaches is to figure out we have to start being brutally honest with ourselves. I know it's October and it's about to be a Halloween soon, and I think it's just so important to make sure you're not wearing any mask.
Mm-hmm.
Be very intentional not to lie to yourself. Be very intentional not to make decisions that make people more comfortable than you are comfortable with yourself. I've seen so many people make decisions as to I'm a recovering people pleaser. It's in me. That's my nature. I just want to serve people, serve people, serve people. My mom, anytime Thanksgiving, you don't even see her sit. She like to stand up and watch everybody eat, and that's good. But just be careful for the remaining 364 days that you
Mm-hmm.
sit down and that you eat and that you take care of yourself and that somebody else is looking after you. I just encourage people to make sure that they take care of themselves. I feel like so often we're the back burner. We're the second thought. We're so used to just making sure mom and them okay, cousin them okay, grandma and them okay. But I need people to one acknowledge the grief, spend time with it. It's gonna
Mm-hmm.
hurt. I had to honor like my aunt. I'm like, okay, cool. That's why I bring her in every room. I bring her in every podcast. Like I love people who say, anytime you're scared, you're about to do something, have an uncomfortable conversation, do something you never done before, run that marathon, do that exercise. Bring the people with you. Bring those people that you lost with you. You
Mm-hmm.
are never alone. Bring them in the room with you. Everywhere you go. Like I said, I see cardinals everywhere. Everywhere I go, I just feel. So I want you to feel that love that you experience, because when that's all grief is, it's just you have experienced such a the highest level of love, and now it's gone, so you just have that longing for it. So instead of feeling like, oh, it's gone, I'm never going to have it, I want you to spend time with it, embrace it, and like I mentioned, just honor yourself and make sure you're not just people pleasing and wearing masks for other people, to where when you look in the mirror at the end of the day, you don't even know which mask or who you are.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. One more thing before we kind of get out of here, because we talked about your story, right? We talked about your story and the journey that you've been through, and having had success in different areas of your life, and now you're a speaker, which adding to a whole nother area for you to have success in. There is a point that you look at, all the achievements, and you look at all the things that you've been able to accomplish, and the person may sometimes look at the things that they've done and be like, oh, okay, I did good, but then there's a place and there's a part that we go beyond that, right? Beyond just the surface achievements that we've been able to do, And so even in your own life, and when you're talking, especially, doing corporate, which I think you do also, when you're talking to different ones who have reached the level of achievement, to be able to get them to see, okay, that's good, but there's a little bit more. You know what I mean? There's a little bit more on the other side of that that is not necessarily even built on the achievements that, like you just mentioned, may have a space of people pleasing in it. It's like, if you really think about it, there's some things that we do. Like, if it wasn't for trying to get the approval of other people, we probably wouldn't even do it. You know what I mean? And like, I had a conversation with my daughter. My daughter's 22. And when she graduated from high school, she was an honor roll student, very smart, and everybody was pushing her, like, go to college, go to college, go to college. And she's like, I don't really want to go to college. She was like, I was good in school because I had to do it. So I, put my best foot forward and everything. But I don't like school like that. And so for her then to turn around, was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna go to college. And I had to have a conversation with her, like, don't do something just to please other people.
Mhm.
Like, you're at the point now as a young adult Now you have to start making the decisions that's going to be in your best interest, and not just doing things just to appease me as your dad, or please your mom, or anybody else. But now you got to start making decisions of whatever achievements that you want to reach, and whatever it is that you want to do, you're doing it from a healthy place that's valuable to you, right? And so when you're speaking to these different people in these different areas of who again have reached a level of achievement, to say, okay, that's good, but there's a little bit more beyond that. What
Yeah.
is some of the things that you begin to talk to them about to even open up their eyes to say, yes, I am the CEO of whatever, but I'm more than that also.
Wow, I love that question. And cheers to your daughter. I mean, I was right there with her. I dropped at 19, like I mentioned, I dropped out when I got that phone call. Even before then, I knew I didn't want to be in school. I was just doing it because I looked to my left, I looked to my right, and everybody was doing it. But I knew I wanted to do photography. I knew I wanted to do something of creativity, but there was no budget for it. There was no vision for it. There was nobody around me I saw who was
Mm-hmm.
doing something that fulfilled them. Because honestly, I saw it's almost like people looked at you like you were homeless if you were not going to school. They're like,
Right.
"Honey, you want to paint? You want to do photography?" Somebody told her she needed finance, or
Right.
she needed to be a doctor. Like people try to box you in. And so the thing I would tell people like that is just make sure the way you talk to yourself matters. The way that you talk to yourself matters. The way that you see yourself matters. My therapist has been helping me a lot understand that you have to have a positive self-image of yourself, not making sure other people have this positive image of you, but you have a positive image of yourself. And one of the greatest ways to do that is either the words that you speak to yourself. Like when somebody knocks their hand or they get a problem wrong, they be like, "Oh, you idiot!" They talk about, wait, watch how you talk to yourself now. Well, everything is, it's like a boomerang to me. It comes back and it proves to be true. So I'm like, if you believe you are a CEO, if you believe you're supposed to be a creator, do more things to put, and then put action behind it, right? So for me, that's why I even started speaking. Once I decided to get into my speaking career, I was like, okay, let me invest, right? I encourage people to invest in whatever they understand they're supposed to do. I encourage you to invest it, right? So you can see that positive self-image. And I also encourage people to be very, I give people a warning, right? What you just said, that was so powerful. Be aware to not be on the journey of self-sabotage. Be aware of not being on the
Mm-hmm.
journey of self-betrayal. Every time that we decide to people please and make somebody else happy, we are betraying ourselves. And over the years, that creates compound interest of self-hatred, and that's dangerous. That can end up to being that bankrupt state to where now you no longer want to be here because there is nothing in your bank account to exist from. So anybody, if you are on that certain level of success, you're like, okay, what's next? I encourage you to check how you're talking to yourself. I encourage you to check where you investing into yourself, and then also check what areas have you been betraying yourself. So therefore, you can now correct your journey. So when you look back in 5 years, you'll be happy that you decided to redefine everything around you and transform.
Yeah, and I think it's important with everything that you just said. I think one major component of all of that is knowing yourself,
Come on.
right? To know yourself. I think that's one thing, especially, coming up out of high school and things of that nature, becoming a young adult, you're always doing what you're told, right? Somebody said do this, somebody said do this, somebody said do that. My parents said I should go to college, or, whatever. And you never really take the time to know yourself and get to know yourself and what it is that your desires are. And that can lead you to people please, and that can lead you to take actions, or to do things that you really don't want to do. Like you mentioned, that you looked around and see everybody was going to school. It was like, okay, I guess that's the thing to do. And you live in Atlanta, so with all the colleges down there, it's like, what you mean you're not going? You know what I'm saying? But I remember, and I shared this story with some of my mentees in the mentoring program that I'm in, with knowing yourself and knowing what makes you happy. I remember in high school, I was, a great student too, honor roll and all of that stuff. And I remember sitting down with my counselor. One of the things that I wanted to do was to become a bricklayer. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I remember sitting down with my counselor, and he's like, well, you're so intelligent and this and that. You should, own your own company, and you should start a bricklaying company, a construction company, instead of just being a bricklayer. I'm like, Yeah, that sounds good. And I do have the ability to do that, but that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to be the person that's physically building the thing. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And so that's what I did. So 22 years later, now I've been a bricklayer for 22 years and a happy career that I'm fulfilled in. But had I listened to him just because I had the smarts to do it, because I had the ability to do it, and not saying that it was a wise counsel for him to even encourage me to do it. But at a certain place, you have to know yourself and know what makes you happy as an individual. And I knew what made me happy as an individual was to be the one that's physically building these things with my hands. And so, like I said, 22 years later, I've been doing this thing, a long time. Now I'm ready to do something else. You know what I'm saying? But I had to know who I was in order to know what the next steps for myself should be. And I think that that's an important component that we can't, overemphasize, that especially coming out of high school. And I'll drop a plug for taking an assessment, and I know Dr. Eric Thomas has the flight assessment, and that was pivotal for me. And I didn't take it till I was, I was in my late 30s when I took it. But even that, taking that assessment to be able to begin to know the different parts of yourself that you probably never even took time to learn. And so I think that's important for us to take an assessment, whether it's a disc assessment, whether it's the flight assessment, whatever you need to do to really begin to do that personal development and really begin to know yourself, so
Mm-hmm.
that then you can make those decisions that's in your best interest and not just depending on the viewpoint of other people. So I will say that. um Tess, I want to say thank you, first of all. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your story and your expertise. I want you to have the last word, and I want you to leave us with, some words of advice or, motivation, however you feel, and also with your social media handles and where we can find you. And I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, to my audience, I want to say thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our website. Go to our website to find out a little bit more about us at dealhealfulfill.org. That is like the company website, which kind of includes everything that I have going on. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. Make sure you guys go there and check us out there. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out, check me out, should I say, on my personal website, as a speaker, which is ernestjamesspeakslife.com, to have me to come out to be a speaker at your organization, or facilitate a workshop for you guys. Again, that's ernestjamesspeakslife.com. You guys can go there and find out more information that I have there. So make sure you guys are going there. Also, check out my ebooks that I have at ebooksbyEjames.com. One of the things that we talked about on here a little bit, with the whole thing with suicide, is that sometimes we're holding grudges against ourselves, for things that we did in the past. And that can add to the anxiety that we feel, which can lead us down a dark path. And so one of the ebooks that I wrote is an ebook called Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. And I think that's has been very impactful, and I've been getting great ratings from it. So make sure you guys go to ebooksbyejames.com. There are several ebooks there, but that one is definitely there. You guys can check it out. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys are checking us out there. Also, Deal to Heal Tees, which is our inspirational t-shirt line. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. Not only can you get your official Deal to Heal t-shirt, like the one that I have on now, but you also can get your podcast merch, which is the t-shirts with our logos from our Deal to Heal podcast, and one from our Girl Dad Discussions podcast as well. Again, that's deal, the number 2, healtees.com, in order to check that out. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly, talking about everything surrounding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world, because we believe that forgiveness of ourselves and of everyone has played such a pivotal part in our day-to-day lives, and definitely can help our world to become a better place when we learn to forgive each other and show up in love. So you guys can sign up to take part in our next virtual workshop at forgivenessmission.com. Again, it's forgivenessmission.com. It's absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So again, go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop, or you can just go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission, and you will find us there as well. Again, Tess, I want to say thank you again so very much for showing up. Thank you for being a part and taking our time of your day to be a part here on the podcast. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Wow, Ernest, thank you again for having me on your platform. Shout out to all your listeners. The way that you hold this platform is very phenomenal, and I wish you so much success. I'm excited to partner with you in the future as well for some of the endeavors that we have. One thing that I will leave with the audience is to check your capacity, my friends. Check your capacity. I feel like in relationships, I feel like in the relationship with ourselves, it's important to see what capacity do we have. I know a lot of times we take on so much, and just like a computer, it's just like, okay, there's a limited amount of space. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage people to check your capacity, say no more often if you can. I challenge you actually to say no more often so you can say yes to yourself. I also challenge you to review your circle. See if it is a pool of great people or if it's a noose to your purpose. I also encourage you to look in the mirror and ask yourself just one question at the end of the day. If you don't remember anything, who were you before the world told you who you should be? I think it's so important to create your own narrative. I think it's so important to embrace your narrative. And I think it's just so important to realize why you were born. You weren't born to take your own life. You weren't born to look at everybody else and compare your life. You were born to thrive. And there's something in you that you have to understand. There's something in you that you have to build in order for you to heal and get to that more fulfilled life. So cheers, everybody. Like he mentioned, my name is Tess. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, even YouTube, TES_speaks. So I'm so thankful again, Ernest. I appreciate you.
No problem. No problem. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.